Hello, happy Friday. All right, I still have my dictation software on. It just wrote out hello, happy Friday. So let me turn that off. All right, I'm gonna give people a second. We have so many awesome questions. I love live Q&A Friday because it gives me a chance to hear your questions, but then I get the opportunity to just like really think about it. And I always uh, write out the answers, which is just a really good practice. So, um, hey guys, I'm gonna actually go ahead and get started since there are so many questions. And let's see. I'm sorry. Let me just pull this up and we can get rolling. I want to start out talking about SEO because it's just been a conversation that I've been having with a lot of people. All right. Sorry. Okay, so one, I'm super excited because I've gotten a chance to go through all your questions and really write out some thorough responses. And I want to start out with SEO, which actually wasn't a question, but I've just been talking about it with so many people lately. I thought it would be a good idea to go over. So this is just going to be some random thoughts about SEO, but I think it will help everyone. When you're writing blogs, so first of all, let's start with this. The reason I recommend blogs to start with is because in the world of copywriting, they're kind of the low-hanging fruit. Usually people actually don't spend a ton of money on blogs because they need so many of them. So right now, starting out, everybody, you're thinking, wow, $200 a blog. But actually $200 on a piece of copy is really not a lot. When you move on from blogs, there are things like sales pages and website copy and white papers if you decide to go that route, product descriptions, and those are all things that you can charge hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for. Blogs, because they're needed consistently, are also a good choice to get started because finding consistent work is the hardest part about being a freelancer. So I wanted to go ahead and set you guys up right away with some consistent work. And I just think blogs are the solution to that. So, hey everyone. Hey Courtney. Hey Christina. So that is just some big picture thinking behind that. And so SEO is only needed for copy that is going to be on a website live for a long period of time where Google can crawl through it, see what it's about, and that's how it gains its value is over time. So when you write a blog, the SEO is not going to work right away. You need to be sure to let your clients know that it's a long-term strategy to be writing blogs. So so just keep that in mind. So SEO is for things that are going to be online for a long period of time, like blogs and website copy. So a good quick way, I just went through this exercise with somebody who had their one-on-one session with me, and we were looking at her blog, and I wanted to just go through how I find SEO keywords. And there are other ways that people probably think are more technical, but this has worked really well for me. So basically what I do is when I'm writing an article, I'll think to myself, what would somebody type into Google to get my article? And you can also add SEO keywords at the end of an article. In fact, sometimes I do that. I know generally what it's going to be. I think it helps to do it beforehand, but it's totally not out of the question to do it afterwards as well, or to go through and kind of like spruce it up. So I'm going to use the example of insulin sensitivity because it's something I've captured the first 2 spots in Google for. So, well, actually, one of my clients captured the other one. But so anyway, Insulin sensitivity is something that I noticed was a missing keyword. And this is another benefit of having a niche, right? Is that I am so familiar with the content. I reached out to a client and I said, hey, you know what? Everyone has been writing about insulin resistance, which is a precursor to diabetes. But insulin sensitivity is something that people who are very health conscious know is a good thing to have. I've been thinking about it. Like, what is my insulin? How can I be more insulin sensitive? So I was like, let's write an article and try and capture insulin sensitivity and benefits of insulin sensitivity. And since it's a topic that people were approaching from the disease side, I was like, okay, what will people put in? Honestly, it's the very most obvious solution, which is a list, X number of benefits of insulin sensitivity. So I went to her, with this idea, I said, let's do this. She was like, heck yeah. And I typed in benefits of insulin sensitivity, looked down at the bottom. Google will suggest things to you. Took some of those keywords. Let's see, I have it pulled up right here. How to increase insulin sensitivity naturally. So I took that keyword and added it in as probably an H2 because Google looks at your content through like as a hierarchy. So H1s is like more important than an H2 to Google because that's how it knows what is important. Insulin sensitivity and fat loss. I'm just reading the searches related to benefits of insulin sensitivity, which are the recommendations Google gave me. Insulin resistant diet, insulin sensitivity versus insulin resistance. Anyway, I took all those keywords. I didn't use all of them. I probably grabbed the ones that were most logical. I went ahead and I wrote an article specifically to capture the keyword insulin sensitivity and benefits of insulin sensitivity. And guess what? Only a few months later, if you look up those two keywords, my clients are the #1 and the #2 spot in Google. And an insulin sensitivity, which is harder to capture because it's a shorter keyword than benefits of insulin sensitivity, they're #2 and they're #3. So that is a way that you can use SEO. That is a simple example, and I really recommend getting to know that. It doesn't have to be super complex. It is in some industries. If it's a keyword with higher competition, then it's a little bit more complicated than that. But actually, there are a ton of keywords that don't have high competition. So just keep that in mind when you're writing blogs. It can be as simple as doing that process I just walked you through. Definitely incorporate them because that is a massive benefit. And then also keep in mind that going for a lower competition or keyword can also be a good strategy because at the end of the day, if you're winning the #1 spot in Google, Google's like, okay, this website is valuable. So maybe you're not #1 in insulin sensitivity, but you're #1 in a long tail keyword that's related. Google's like, this website still knows what's up. So that is just something I wanted to go over before we jumped into our actual questions. And I hope that makes sense. We can talk about SEO more. And if anyone has any questions or clarifications that they'd like me to go over, you can always, drop another question in a live Q&A or anything like that. So, all right, now let's get to your actual questions. First question. I'm still in the lesson 4 stage of researching and practicing copy. However, I don't want to get in overconsumption mode. Awesome. And I already have an idea for an article or blog post. How do I find the best placement for this work? So I wouldn't go ahead and think of like trying to figure out where to put that work, except for it could be a good portfolio piece. So this brings me to an important point. Everyone should have a swipe file. And a swipe file is basically just a collection of ideas and other copy that you thought was really good. Make a Google Drive doc or folder called swipe file. Keep stuff in there for inspiration because you will never run out of inspiration this way. And that is what a swipe file is. So yeah, just go ahead, start a doc of blog ideas, article ideas that you can just keep a running list of. Keep actual copies of good copy and why you loved it, what they did really well. Try and keep it organized, and you will never run out of inspiration if you do that. So yeah. So maybe keep that idea in a document in your Google Docs that you can use to start your portfolio piece. But I wouldn't think of like, who can I sell this blog to? Because it doesn't quite work like that usually. But one day later on down the road, an ideal client will be maybe say like, come up with some ideas, and you'll already have a list of ideas in your back pocket. So definitely do that. All right, number 2, are copywriters ever expected to come up with their own ideas for content for clients? And the answer is absolutely. This is one of the benefits of picking a niche and kind of what I just talked about with SEO. As you're surrounded by the work in a particular niche, you're going to start noticing gaps in content, and you're going to come up with ideas that are very specific or new angles that you can approach it with as you write copy. So next one, if you are ghostwriting a piece, how do you use that as a part of your portfolio? Isn't confidentiality part of the agreement? So I love this question. It's a great question. It gets asked a lot. I went into detail on this on the live Q&A Friday, November 16th. I'm going to go over it again, but I just want you to know that you guys can use the search bar off to the left in the group. And if you typed in ghost, for example, you would find that live Q&A. So again, totally happy to answer this, but I just want you to know you have an awesome tool that you can probably find a lot of resources just by using that search bar. And at the end of live Q&As, I always go through and type out what each one is about to make that search easier for you. So back to the question. You can work into your contract that you're allowed to use pieces for your portfolio. And this is actually a personalized section of the and.co contract I recommend in the course. You can also, after the fact, reach out to the client after the piece is done and they're really pleased with you and say, regardless of your contract, and say, hey, I just wanted to reach out. And then I always say, like, hey, as a copywriter, it can be pretty tough to assemble portfolio pieces because I'm essentially a ghostwriter. And I was just really proud of this piece and was wondering if it would be cool if I used it as a portfolio on my website. So yeah, there's that. The next one should be used a little bit at your discretion, but sometimes if I have a great example for a new potential client, like a piece that just would be a perfect for them, after we've had an initial call and they seem really serious, I go ahead and sometimes in the email show them, that piece, not as a portfolio piece live on my website, of course, but I just say, hey, I think this is a good example of something you want, you would need. And that is something that I do, on a case-by-case basis. And if I'm working with somebody who's hugely reputable already, I go ahead and know it's an okay thing to do, because if they're looking for a copywriter, they know that nearly all copywriting is done like this, and they understand the predicament you're in. So just use your judgment on something like that. I'm sure there are people out there who would think that last bit that I said was kind of crazy because it's not completely by the book. But again, I don't do it a lot. I just do it when I think it's like a really good fit. And remember, you only need 3 to 5 portfolio pieces on your website to get the conversation started. And you can send like separate pieces as and when you see fit. And really the only trouble you can get into is just by putting things on your website without permission. So just don't do that. So that's how you get around that. Number 4, how do you show your monetary value to a client? In other words, how do you prove the effectiveness of an inbound marketing strategy and measurable dollars? Or do ideal clients understand a strong online presence equals a long game bottom line increase? So this is a great question. And a couple of thoughts come to mind. First of all, I would be really wary of any marketer who guarantees results in inbound marketing or outbound marketing for that matter. In fact, I think it is anyone who is truly honest can never guarantee anything. And that is what I say. I don't, open with that. Like, I can't guarantee you anything. What I do is I tell, like, obviously, if you're new, this isn't going to work. But, I give previous examples of like things that have worked in the past. And you guys will have this pretty quickly, by the way. So don't worry about that. It will come. But examples of things that worked in the past, and then also the best marketers I know always say, like, say at the end, nothing is guaranteed in the world of marketing. What we do and what we do best is we test, we try again, we see what works, we collect data, we figure out that your readers really liked this subject line in an email, or this blog got a lot more shares than that blog, and we write more content like that. So that is really what your job is. It's not necessarily yeah, an ideal client will understand that a strong online presence is a long game, and that is where the bottom line increases. So my gut reaction to this question is if they don't already understand the importance of a copywriter, they're probably not an ideal client. But that doesn't mean you wouldn't want to work with them, especially if you're like, just starting out. But I like to think of the process of going from being sold on something, whether it's an idea, a brand, or an item, or a person, as a journey. So on one end, you have somebody who's never heard of this new thing. Maybe it's you. And on the other end, they're like, hell yeah, this is amazing. I'm totally sold, and I'm going to tell other people about it. And this middle ground is the journey. And that is what we're doing as copywriters. We're doing inbound marketing, we're doing blogs, websites, ads, emails, and this is where you build trust and respect. But with that in mind, like, this is a great question, so we want to be able to answer it. And it actually reminds me of another question, so I'm going to lump that into real quick because they used a doctor as an example. And it was posted in this group. A doctor with a website and a blog showed some interest, but she asked me via email, how would she benefit from contracting my services? How can she monetize her site, her blog? And to be honest, I realized I did not have a solid answer for her. She's currently not selling anything. I was thinking of writing content for her blog, which patients might see, then maybe putting together some guides for her patients, which is a fantastic idea, by the way. Right now, her blog just sends her readers to outside sources and pages. So that is a good place for you to say, hey, wouldn't you want to be a resource? You're going to be a resource instead of sending people away. So my ideas are: improve the blog to maybe attract more patients, but sometimes insurance is really what determines if a patient can even go to a particular doctor. I would disagree with that. Yes, they still have lots of options within that insurance company, though, so keep that in mind. Improve her site, again, to attract more potential patients. Find something she can sell and then promote that. And those of you who write for doctors, how are you helping increase their income? So this is great because it's the question before, but we're going to do it from a doctor's perspective. But everything I'm about to say is true for pretty much anyone. So the thing about doctors is they aren't cut and dry as a company selling an actual product, right? So that's another reason this is, I think, a good example, because it's a little bit more murky. So first and foremost, a strong online presence helps with trust and credibility. More and more, and I feel like everyone here probably can relate, but more and more people look at a personal website, or social media presence, to dig around on a business or person to decide if that is what, like, somebody they want to do business with. Think about your own experience. Think about even like this course and working with me. How much did you dig around and look up somebody's website? Did you snoop on their social media profile? And when it comes to a person, you're actually trying to make sure that you like that person too. I mean, to be honest, when people look up doctors, and actually the statistic is that 70% of all people look at a doctor's websites and judge them before making an appointment. And I really suspect that number is larger. And as people get older and the younger generations who've grown up with the internet their entire lives, that's only going to get bigger. So first and foremost, blogs and website content establish credibility. And then if they're SEO optimized, they can actually drive searches to the top of Google. So, for example, if I wanted to capture, when I would talk to a doctor client, I would say, what are your goals? Are your goals to bring in more patients? And if so, what kind of patients? Do you want more people with autoimmune disease? Because at the end of the day, doctors really want to work with the conditions that they're most comfortable with. So if you say, okay, you want to work with more autoimmune disease patients, we're going to make your website more robust in autoimmune disease. We're going to write articles and tips on autoimmune disease. We're going to create resources that when you have patients come in, you can direct them to, like, hey, I wrote a whole thing on autoimmune disease diet. Here it is, start there. And then when somebody is looking for just a general, like, doctor or whatever, and they're doing a search, if they see 3 different doctors come up for Arizona doctor, and or maybe Flagstaff, Arizona doctor, and then they also type in autoimmune disease, if your doctor is continuously publishing blogs on autoimmune disease, they're going to raise to the top of Google for that. So that is how you bring value. You establish them as an authority, and goes for all brands and stuff. You establish them as an authority in the industry so people trust them. There's credibility. You use SEO to like capture some of the stuff that you want, them to be known for. And then and so that is how you offer, your services. And then for them to say like whether or not it's going to increase their bottom line, at the end of the day, like if they don't have, I would just be like, oh, you're sending people away with your blog. Like, wouldn't you want people to stay there and see you as the resource? That's how you're going to get more patients in the door. So there's that. And then also when it comes to monetizing a blog, first of all, they can't really even think about monetizing their blog unless they have traffic to their website and they have an ongoing audience. So that's something that you can definitely like say, like, I mean, we can monetize your blog, but it's not going to work unless you have a readership. So start there. But then to actually monetize it, they can become affiliate of products they believe in. So maybe they have an infrared sauna that they believe in, or just anything that would work. A physical therapist, maybe they have those TheraBands they believe in, and they can become affiliates. So what that means is as long as it's something that they really use and believe in, they can get a percentage of sales. And basically people do that because it's cheaper than advertising, and because it's better, because you have somebody who actually uses the product and says, hey, I believe in this thing. I'm going to be an affiliate and tell people about it. And in return, they're getting a little bit of money for doing so. I have an affiliate for this course because I actually really believe in that model. I think it's really a good way. I would rather, honestly, at the end of the day, I would much rather somebody who absolutely loves my course to go tell their friend about it than for me to send a cold ad and an Instagram and be in somebody's Instagram feed randomly and hope that maybe they'll click on it. I would much rather it come from people who already love and believe in what I do. So that is affiliate marketing, and that's how you can monetize a blog. But you need people that are actually reading your blog, and you also probably need an email list. And so another way you can do that is by creating opt-ins, which would be content that is gated. So maybe an opt-in on 5 ways to, like a paleo ebook, right? Maybe you have a recipe book. That's what I did for my email. And so you have that on your website, but somebody has to enter their email address in order to get it. For me, that was actually my the 4 free videos that you guys got. So that is an opt-in. You collect an email address, and then that way you can start emailing them and having a conversation that's a little more intimate in their inbox. So that's the other thing you could say to this doctor. Hey, let's build some opt-ins so that we can start building your email list, so that we have people who are interested in you as a person, who want to read your blogs, which drives traffic to your website. And then eventually when you become an affiliate of something, we can start writing blogs about that product, but maybe not directly, just the benefits of it. And then we can send it to your email list. And then one day, if you want to write a book, or you want to sell a course, or you want to do anything else like that, you can have an email list that's already ready to go, that's already warm, that already likes you. And that is another way that you can monetize that process. So I would go back to that doctor and say, hey, for me to figure out how to best like serve you, let's talk about your goals, so that I can figure out, so I can tell you about how my services fit your specific needs. And I just want you to know that this is part of the learning process. And my first client pitches were absolutely horrendous. Each time I would go through this, I mean, I know I was doing this blindly, just kind of figuring it out as I went. And every time somebody comes back to you with questions like this, it's an opportunity to learn and grow. And I just want to thank you for actually submitting this or sharing this question, because it was a great piece of conversation that we can all have and we can all learn from. And this is exactly why I want to do this as a group, because if you haven't gotten to this point yet of your, your process, you now have heard this and you have this in the back of your mind for when you deal with it. And it's like one less thing you have to go through on your own and learn from. One more thing I want to add about that is when it comes to marketing for doctors specifically is, because you mentioned insurance, go after doctors that lay outside of traditional insurance agencies, because those are the ones that understand that marketing is really important to their business. So this could be functional medicine, chiropractors, dentists, physical therapists, anyone that you know has to basically do their own marketing to get clients in the door is going to be a good client for anyone in the health and wellness industry who wants to go after doctors. I would say psychiatrists and therapists, but there are very few of those that understand the importance of marketing. And it's kind of mind-blowing to me. But here's the thing. That's going to change because everyone is coming online, and everyone, younger generations need to see that there's a website and an online presence for them to make to work with a person. So that's going to change. So just because psychiatrists and therapists are not the best at that right now doesn't mean nobody's doing it. It just means that there's a huge market that's going to probably explode one day, and we will be ready and waiting. So there was a lot on that, but I hope that helps. Definitely let me know if you need some clarifications. So the next question is, can you show us how to use Shopify for getting started with e-commerce? So I'm assuming this is referring to my YouTube video about using e-commerce as a niche if you don't know what niche to use. And I just want to let you know that you don't need to know how to use Shopify to write in the e-commerce niche. Shopify is like WordPress or Squarespace for hosting online stores. So you just kind of need to know that wherever Shopify store owners hang out is where you can find a group of potential clients. It would be just like if somebody was in personal finance or real estate, just start thinking about like, where would real estate agents hang out? Where would people in personal finance, like financial advisors, hang out online? This is where Facebook groups are super helpful, but you don't necessarily need to actually know how to use the platform to write in that niche. So next question. When filing taxes as a freelance copywriter, do you plan to set aside 25 to 30% of your income for taxes? I know I'm not there yet, but I'm a planner. Me too. Would I have a small business name when I file, or how does that work? So again, go ahead, and also there's some resources that you could find by searching this. I think if you put taxes in the search bar, you'll see other things, but real quick, usually you just need to start out with an LLC. You go to the Secretary of State website. It's usually about 50 bucks. You make sure your name is available. You do not need your LLC name to be the same as how you like have it on your website and stuff. It's not necessary. It's literally just so you have a number for taxes. And so you protect your assets so that they're not, if you get sued, for example, they can't like come directly after you. Also, please keep in mind that this is from my own personal experience. I am not an accountant and I don't really know. So you should definitely hire an accountant. But yes, sign up for an LLC. Go ahead and do that so that you can do that as you start taking on clients. And then I just assume that 30% of the money in my bank account is not mine. So I'm pleasantly surprised when it's not that much. And you can set aside a savings account. And then everyone, I really want to, I've said this a couple of times, but I want to keep saying it, is keep in mind that there is a threshold where you should make the switch from an LLC to an S Corp. And I say this because it saved me a ton on taxes, because basically it keeps my business money separate. So yes, I have like my business account. A lot of my, like most of my money actually is in there, and I don't really touch it. I just pay myself from it from time to time. And I don't know when that threshold is. This is why I think hiring an accountant is totally worth it. Basically what happened to me was taxes really stressed me out because I was worried I was paying too much or not enough. So I finally hired an accountant. It was $250. And I was so sad about spending that much money, but it ended up being one of the best decisions I've ever made. And he immediately looked at my taxes and was like, "What are you doing? You should be an S Corp. You're paying way too much in, what was the tax? I don't even know the name of the tax, but I was just like, oh, okay, thank you so much. And it's just the peace of mind that that brought me is massive. So I hope that helps. All right, Sarah, what do you feel was your key to success in the early days as you launched? And what is your key to success today? How do you personally measure success, out of curiosity? I love this question because, okay, so I love this question, sorry, because when you are working for yourself, it is so easy to not celebrate your wins, to not even know when you've reached a milestone. And unlike other jobs, where you have somebody patting you on the back, you have somebody telling you that you're doing a good job, imposed milestones that you have to reach. And maybe they're celebrated, maybe they're not. But when you work for yourself, it's really easy to not keep track of those things. And when I was first creating this course, I actually didn't have the first 2 lessons in there because I was worried people would open the course and think, I don't need this. Why is she talking about this? This is a writing course. But it kept pulling at me because I realized that in my journey as an entrepreneur, which is going on 5 years now, I realized that those first 2 lessons are the most important thing that I've implemented in my life to make me successful. And so I realized I would be doing everyone a massive disservice if I didn't include that. So when it comes to success, I set goals, just like I say in those first 2 lessons, and that's how you know when you're succeeding. Because if you don't do that, I would constantly feel pressured, overwhelmed, and like I wasn't good enough. So I actually reset goals all the time. And in my early days, my measurements of success were very small. I mean, it was like getting 1 client by the end of the month, sending 20 cold emails a day, not beating myself up if I didn't reach one of my goals, because that was huge. I was constantly beating myself up. I feel like I was almost a worse boss initially than bosses I've had. And then eventually it was, it's gotten bigger. It's been more things like taking what I've learned to have a positive impact. Right now, my biggest goals are about having a positive impact in people's lives. And I still do this exercise probably when I start to notice when I'm doing my morning routine, when I start to notice that they're not really in alignment anymore, I go ahead and do that exercise again. And sometimes it's easy and I know what's next. And sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes when I'm setting those goals, I really struggle and I'm not sure what's next. And that can, that's another part that comes with being your own boss, is you're the one setting the goals. So there's nobody telling you if it's right or wrong. But I really, really believe that, mindset is absolutely everything when it comes to being your own boss. And I really, really, really encourage you guys to take that part seriously and to do your own exploring on your own. And I'm not the only one who thinks that mindset is the most important part of successful entrepreneurship. It's a pretty common theme if you start reading into it and following other, leaders in the area. So that's just my thoughts on that. But okay, next question. So this might sound silly, but would you elaborate more on each of these pieces of copy? Specifically, what kind of content each piece should contain and the word count as it usually falls around. I've got a pretty good idea of what each one is, but for some reason, I get a little muddled when I think about it, and researching it, some clarification would be amazing. So this is not a silly question. This is a fantastic question. So let's talk about these different pieces of copy you wanted to talk about. First is primary source articles. So primary source articles, honestly, I don't even think that's like a really huge term in the industry. I think I might have come up with it. No, I didn't. I don't know. It's just not a very common one, but is a great one, because basically what it implies is that it's going to be the biggest, most robust, I've been using robust a lot, piece of content on that subject. So I like it, especially in the health and wellness space. It's a good thing to mention. Actually, it would be great in real estate or in personal finance comes to mind, because primary source articles basically just means it's going to be like it could be a resource for other people, and that it's only going to use high quality links. It's going to have novel ideas and basically just think of it as like the best thing online on that subject. So go out and find out what the top 5 things ranking in Google are for whatever it is you're talking about and beat it. That's like the best way to think about that. And so for as far as word count, this is just a ballpark, but I think it's going to need to be at least 2,000 words for it to become a primary source article. Emails can be 80 words to 500 words. It really just depends on what you're doing. Emails are usually for lead nurturing. Like think about the emails you got when you signed up for this course. Those were just, I wanted to give you a chance to get to know me. And I wanted you to kind of get in touch with and get to know my philosophy on things, because really at the end of the day, I wanted to find a very specific person to sign up for this course. I didn't want just anyone to sign up for this course, right? I wanted people who, you know, had some spunk and maybe doubted themselves, but kind of knew that there was something in there that was bigger that needed to come out. So that's lead nurturing. And then emails can be direct sales, which is really common in e-commerce, where it's like, hey, buy one, get one free. Yeah, so things like that. And emails can be very short, like I said, 80 words, or they can be very long. Like some of mine were very long. Newsletters, and these can be, so these again are emails usually, and they're around 100 to 200 words, and they're usually highlighting blogs or content on the website or opt-ins. They would be a good place to announce opt-ins to an email list. And again, this can be lead nurturing, so sending out newsletters to people who are interested in your business to make sure that you stay top of mind. Top of mind is another like jargony thing. Yeah, so newsletters are great for basically lead nurturing, and then also highlighting new content so you can drive traffic to that. So yeah. And then website content pages can be anywhere from like 300 words to 1,000 words. They should be SEO optimized. And it, again, really depends on who it's for. In the health and wellness space, I really encourage people to have like 1,000-word or more pieces of website content, because I want their web page, like if it's a description of a condition like autoimmune disease, let's go back to that one. Why not, instead of saying I treat autoimmune disease, why don't we give them a really amazing resource on autoimmune disease? So when they go there, not only did they learn something, but they trust you more and they see that you're an expert. So that's one way to do website content. It'll depend. Website content for e-commerce brands, that's not going to be as long or lengthy, and it shouldn't be. It should be like 300 words, a little bit about the company, what the products are going to do, benefits. Yeah. White papers. So white papers are beasts. White papers can be anywhere from 3,000 words to 7,000 words. And again, I'm massively ballparking here. But white papers are basically a hardcore sales letter, or not letter, copy, where you are describing a product. And usually you do white papers for something that is very, very expensive. And that is why the piece of sales copy needs to be extremely long and detailed and thorough. So a good example of like the most common example people give for white papers are usually medical supplies. Anytime you're trying to sell a hospital something that is like tens of thousands of dollars, you're going to need a white paper, because it's going to take that much work, time, effort, strategy to convince somebody that they need to buy a $10,000 piece of equipment. And that is, I really thought I wanted to write white papers because they're usually very research heavy and you can be more scientific-y. And I feel more comfortable writing actually like that. So I thought I wanted to be a white paper lady. And I wrote a few white papers and then just stopped, because honestly, I don't know, I guess I got out of my like research heavy mode, and I didn't find it as rewarding to focus on one product for very long. But people who write white papers, you charge minimum of $3,000 a white paper. So that is a really good option. It's a definitely a different path. But the resources, there's so many resources out there on white papers. And yeah, so that's what white papers are. Next one, wondering about writing portfolio pieces before you have much experience. I know Medium are great places to publish, but I'm finding it difficult to come up with fictional briefs or writing prompts on the fly. Know of any good copy prompts? Awesome question. So this is going to be really niche dependent, which is why picking a niche is lesson 3. So what I would recommend doing is looking in your niche and finding something out there that's awesome and very common, maybe. Let's do like personal finance, maybe 10 ways to save better, right? So go ahead and type that into Google, or ways to save better, and see what the top 5 resources are or 10 resources are that come up, and then write a better version of it. Like, just go ahead and for your portfolio pieces and really dig in deep, and yeah, ask for feedback and see if you can incorporate SEO better than everything that's out there. You'll probably surprise yourself. Yeah, so that would be my suggestion. Find what else is out there and write a better version of it. And then that way it is something that will be something that people in your niche will desire. They'll see it and think, wow, this is amazing. And then also, you know, a copy prompt could just be to rewrite something that's already out there, but to do a better job. So that's what I would do. All right, next question. Can you give us a breakdown of your schedule, your work day? Do a lot certain times, daytime for emails, and create videos. I want to build a strong, balanced foundation before copywriting starts to take off so I can be on top of it. I have a feeling there will be a lot of unforeseen things I have to schedule in, stuff I don't know about now. Just hungry for any tips that would help this learning curve. Okay, this is a great question. So a couple things come to mind. First is that you should always prioritize you and your business first. This took me a long time to figure out. I would get up in the morning and I would jump right into client work, and I just do not think that is the way to do things most effectively anymore. So what does that mean? That means not responding to your emails right away. Everyone has an optimum time where they work their best, and that should be guarded with your life. So that means, for me, it's the first 3 hours of the day. So that means no emails, no clients. I've definitely broken my own rule many, many times. But yeah, that is something I do. And I always do a morning routine. Something that helps with this is I make sure that it's not too long. I've had morning routines that were an hour before, and if I knew it was an hour, sometimes I would just not get around to it. Make sure it's like 20 minutes, and then there's no excuse. There's no excuse to not set aside 20 minutes for yourself in the morning, because setting a morning routine always makes my days better. It makes me focused. It makes me be a better copywriter, honestly, all around. And I deliver better work to my clients. So that would be it. Another thing I do is I always plan my day, the next day, the night before. And that is huge because you wake up less stressed. You know exactly what your day is going to look like the next day. For me, a lot of times anxiety and overwhelm and stress come from the unknown. So if I have a bunch of unknown to-dos tomorrow and I haven't put it down on a list, that's going to stress me out. But if I just take the 5 seconds to write it down, prioritize it, and maybe block out like, okay, from like 1 to 2, I'm going to do this, blah, 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 blah. When I wake up in the morning, I'm not stressed out because I understand that I know it's coming. So always plan tomorrow, today. That's one of my favorite quotes from somebody I really like. And yeah, also I try not to respond to emails until 11 o'clock in the morning. You know, that is totally okay. Clients can wait. I just say that I have a 24-hour response time, which is perfectly acceptable. I always do my biggest to-dos first. So everything that is scariest, I do first. I batch my emails, which means after 11 o'clock, I don't have notifications for emails on my phone, actually. And I make sure that I just log on and set aside time for emails. Because this is the other thing. When you get into your email inbox, it has a way of sucking up time because then you're responding to questions. it just sends you off in a series of tasks. So batch your emails and don't respond right away, and just get used to that, because you do not need to respond right away. And then the other thing is, that's why I love Boomerang. Sometimes if I respond to a client, I know I'm going to get a quick response back, but I don't want to respond to them right that second. So I'll Boomerang my emails for maybe I want it off my plate, but I don't want to start the conversation until tomorrow. So I'll go ahead and Boomerang my emails for 9 a.m. the next day. So they will get a response in under 24 hours, but I won't have to worry about getting another email from them asking for something else. I just make sure I protect my time. So yeah, that was a great question. Next one. Are you responsible for adding visuals, pictures to your copy? I know this depends on what copy you're writing for and who it's for, but I'm wondering if it has to be done. And if so, what's the best place to go for visuals? So no, it doesn't always have to be done. It can be included in your pricing or your services, or it doesn't have to be. The one thing that of all the types of copy where you usually include visuals is usually blogs. So everything else, not so much, but usually you should kind of shy away from doing this, because every brand, person, company has their own brand style and feel, and usually there's a graphics person whose responsibility is to make sure that that is like cohesive. So, but starting out, it can be great to help people with a few images for their blogs, especially if they're not, don't have the right people in place yet. And when you are going to offer that, go ahead and, just make sure it's not something that's ongoing. Try to really protect your time there. But the 3 places I like the most are Upsplash, Pixabay, and Pexels, which I'm pretty sure they're all in the course somewhere. So, but yeah, again, just look up royalty-free images, which means you're allowed to use them without being like penalized. Next question. When working in health and wellness field, what are some reliable resources you recommend using? So in the health and wellness space, I only cite PubMed, government websites, and other publications for studies and journals like BMC, which is British Medical Journal. Yeah, so with that being said, I do use websites like Healthline, for example, as a resource. So sometimes I'll open Healthline and see what resources they use. I'll just go ahead and open a bunch of tabs, and that way I can go through and find studies and stuff pretty quickly. But keep in mind, people are pretty bad at citing things, and so you need to be careful doing that and making sure that they, one, read the conclusion of the study correctly, which people get wrong a lot. And then also, if you find an article where they're mentioning a study, don't cite that article. Go to the original source and find the actual study. So yeah, basically just keep it ultra credible, because that's going to basically boost your credibility. I just started your class not too long ago. I was wondering about the morning routine part. My morning starts at 8:30 p.m. Would I be able to transfer the lesson over effectively no matter what time it is? So the morning routine you can really do any time of day. And actually, it's more like a morning routine because it's supposed to be how you start your day. Because starting with your day with intentions, gratitude, and goals has a way of coloring your thoughts and getting your brain to notice things that's in alignment with your life as you go about your day. So I actually think it's best to do a couple of times a day, especially if you're new to this and you're really shifting your thinking. But morning routines are actually best to be done in the morning when you first wake up and right before you fall asleep, because this is when your brain waves are at their lowest frequency, and it's when it's most receptive to the information you're giving it. So it's kind of like tapping into your brain's just getting into that dream state. Anytime you're closer to a dream state, which is why I recommend the isochronic tones with the recording, you are making it more receptive, and it will take in what you're saying easier than when you're in a high beta state, which is when you're like, and you're like really anxious and getting things done. So good question. Yeah, it's not like morning routine just means it should be like the first thing on your day. If that's 8:30 in the evening, go ahead and start that right when you wake up. All right. Oh, I lost it. Okay. Sorry. I got a referral to a potential client who needs a blog post, but their current blog is made up of reposted stolen content from other thought leaders in the niche, including a client I've just started writing for. Ugh. Obviously, I need to inform about poor SEO, but what do I do? Okay, so yikes, you obviously know this is terrible for SEO, because Google flags it as plagiarism. And really, she probably doesn't know better. Like, I'm sure she's going to be probably a little embarrassed when you tell her. Um, and I said, I know, I would just, so you just got to tell her, and walk the line between, like, you don't want to make her feel really bad because she's probably going to feel bad anyway. Um, but um, but also, like, you need to explain to her how serious it is. So I would just say something like, I noticed you're using content from other resources, and I wanted to give you a heads up that Google flags this as plagiarism, and it can really hurt your website ranking. Like, that's pretty serious, and that's kind of all you need to say. And I would also maybe add, like, it's better for you not to post than it is for you to post content that's copy and pasted, which is true. So yeah, she's probably going to be a little embarrassed, but you do need to make sure she understands how serious it is, because you need her to pull it down and you need her to stop. So I've had that happen before, and people just don't know. So they think it's just not something they realize they're doing. Next one. Could you tell me more about writing an outline for an online course? Something, so this is a new thing for me, but I'm going through this process with a client right now. And I think online courses are going to be a big thing for copywriters in the future, everyone. So this is one thing you should do, is you should survey her email base if she already hasn't. So I use SurveyMonkey, and you go in and you set up a survey where you ask them, basically, you don't want to say, if there was a course, what would you want it to include? That can be one of your questions, but try and frame your questions to where you get answers from them that are not necessarily guarded, because people don't actually answer honestly in surveys when you ask them the explicit questions. So you need to, like, think of ways to go around, like, what are your biggest hurdles? What are your biggest challenges? Where are you struggling with your business or your life? Give them some choices. What do you read about most on our website? Gut health. I'm sorry, I always use gut health. It's on my mind. But yeah, so definitely survey an audience if you can. If you can't, you are going to need to go from their personal experience, also maybe from the things that they're asked about. Again, try and get, I mean, survey would be ideal. Try and get really, they could even post it on their Facebook page. Try with, like, an incentive. You're going to have to try and get your client not to just talk about what they want to talk about, but what people want to hear about. So however you can come up with ways to do that, maybe asking your client, what do people ask you about most often? And really try and get them to understand that we got to come at this from an angle of, what do people want, not what do you want to, like, show people. And now, going through this client, we've also taken into consideration her personal experience, which includes when she speaks at events, what do people want to hear about? What do people ask her to talk about? We also talk about her strengths. My client is much better conversational than she is writing anything down, which is why she's hired me. So instead of getting her to write things down, she's going to mostly record all of the things she wants included on Voxer, which is awesome. And then also her goals, like, what is the point of this course? Is this course to get more followers? Is it to establish her as an authority? Is it to build an email list? Are you going to be running Facebook ads? Like, knowing all those things help you create a better course. And then really focusing on that outline, like, work together with her or him to create an outline, and then have her record herself talking, or this person can type it up. I'm just using my client as an example. She's going to be recording herself talking about different key points of each of the bullets in the outline, and that way I can go through and transcribe it. And actually, I might get somebody else to transcribe it, but I'll definitely, like, listen to it, beef it up, clean it up, and then once it's all ready to go and almost like a script, she can just record her voice doing a voiceover, basically recording the script. It can have mistakes in it. And then it just needs to be like somewhat continuous. And then at the end, we're gonna have somebody make slides to go over the voiceover. So really, as a copywriter for a course, you're almost like writing a script, if that makes sense, which is great because it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be, it just needs to be something that covers everything. And then we're gonna edit it together using iMovie, which is time consuming but easy. Put the slides over the voice, and that's it. And we'll be uploading it into a platform called Teachable, which is where she's going to host the content. So I'm providing this as a more comprehensive offering to this client because she's like a friend at this point. So really, theoretically, with a client, you could potentially just do the part where you help them with the outline, help them with the planning, help them with the outline, and then help them with the script. And then kind of point them in the right direction for somebody who can come up with slides, editing the video, and uploading it. It really shouldn't be, you can find people like that on Upwork and on Fiverr. So yeah, you should be the strategy. All right. I'm curious if you know of any tips or tricks to write at a lower reading level. I write how I speak, but I also don't have 6th graders in my peer group. I've been using the Hemingway app, but I still struggle to write below a 12th grade level unless I'm thorough. I go through and specifically look for words my 6th grade self wouldn't have used. Okay, so this is an ongoing struggle for me personally as well. A couple of things you can do, and honestly, you might not get to 6th grade reading level. Most of my content is at like a 10th grade reading level, because I'm using words that are just, I mean, gut microbiome is not going to be something that's going to bring up my reading level. So like at the end, 6th grade is just something I like to say to remind people in emails and stuff like that. Like 6th grade reading level is ideal. Same with ads. And I also use the 6th grade mark as something that I explain to my clients. Like I tell clients all the time, hey, keep in mind that good copy should be around the 6th grade reading level, especially with anybody who's like super jargony. I try and remind them 6th grade is our mark. So a couple of things that you can do is, one, I bet, I'm still guessing because I do it myself, you're using words like although, or hold on, I actually pulled up a list. Using words like where's my list? Sorry. Approximately, following, however, succinct, manufacture instead of just make, or utilize instead of use, expenditure instead of spending. Yeah, replacing all these words with like short words like about, but, and, after, like just little things like that can bring your reading level down a lot. Another thing is to really simplify the ideas, the concept, like only write about one thing at a time. Another thing actually is to keep your sentences really short, really short. In fact, that's the biggest tip I have for new copywriters is people tend to write in really long sentences. So break them up into smaller sentences. Start your sentences with and but. That's a big one. And then also make sure your paragraphs are really short as well. So yeah, you can do that as well. Also, including dialogue helps. That's another good one because it makes it sound more like natural conversation. All right, one more question. How long would you have spent initially writing blogs, articles compared to how long you spend now? It seems like $200 is the going rate, but I don't want to spend more, and I wouldn't want to spend more than 4 hours total on an assignment like that. Okay, going on to talk about what they make now versus what they want to make. So starting out, I probably spent 4 hours on an article. Now they take me less than 2, and usually I can get them done in about 1. So depending on what your personal goals are, I can write about 3 a day. And then, but I also could potentially write just 2 a day, which would, sorry, there are people walking in and I'm distracted. All right, so if you were to write 3 a day, obviously That would be probably between 6 to 8 hours worth of work. And that would include the time it takes to respond to emails and things like that. You could also choose to just write 2 a day. And for me right now and how fast I work, that would be about 5 hours of work, including responding to emails, going after new clients if I needed to. So getting faster while you write is definitely part of the process. And I would encourage you to try not to think about it as an hourly rate, because you don't need to spend X number of hours on something just because somebody paid you a certain amount. And also, as you get faster, that is going to, that those earnings should be passed on to you, right? So that is something to keep in mind. You will get faster as you go. And I think a good goal is to spend about 2 hours writing a 1,000-word blog. I think it's very realistic. Yeah. So, and that is it. Oh, actually, there's one more. Is there a sweet spot for the size of company, maybe an annual revenue we should ideally target? Okay, this was something that was posted in the group. So no, my answer to that question is not necessarily, because sometimes you're going to work with an individual, sometimes you're going to work with a company, and I've had every experience under the sun with the different combinations of these things. Sometimes you'll work with a person who's just their individual brand, and they will understand the importance of copywriting and marketing, and they'll spend more money and more time working with you. And then sometimes you'll work with a massive company who knows that marketing is important, but they don't understand the importance of copywriting, or maybe they just are a mess. I actually just walked away from a really big company that I was working with that just didn't have it together marketing wise, and I just felt like all the writing I was doing was kind of going nowhere. So I don't think that there's a sweet spot with this, because it really depends on priorities. It depends on the niche. It depends on their value, what's important to them, what they're trying to do as a business. So really the best thing I think to do is to look at their online presence and see what they're doing with that. Do they have website content? Are they regularly publishing blogs? Are they doing Facebook ads? Do they have an email list? Sign up for their email list and see what that looks like. Yeah, so those are what I would do, and that's how you can tell if they would need a copywriter. So, all right, these are awesome questions, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, I see people adding comments. Those were great. So yeah, you can apply to have an LLC right away. I was like, tax as an S corp for getting double tax. Yeah. I am actually not sure about that. Thank you, Griffin. I guess you wouldn't want to have it as both. And then software products too for white paper